Beerat also do. It provides the jiva with an art of blissful living because it unravels the real reason behind the suffering in this world. And when that happens, when we understand Beerat thoroughly, what happens is, according to Mahamati Pranana ji, dukha rupi ina jimime dukha na kahu dekhat. In the world full of suffering, the awakened soul does not find suffering at all in this world. See, how is that possible? That is what Beerat would help us attain. Eventual awakening from cosmic illusion is what Beerat helps us understand, and it guides the seekers of truth follow a rightful Dharma. That begs a question: are we not following the rightful Dharma? What is Dharma? Because we all say that we are doing some kind of Dharma. As we say in rough translation, we follow Hindu Dharma, we follow Christian Dharma. So these are religions. The rough translation of Dharma is religion. So Mahamati Pranaji's understanding of Beerat, the Tartamya understanding of Beerat, helps us follow the rightful Dharma. So the question is, are we not already doing that? That is where we start. As the seekers of truth, the followers of some spiritual path, this would be a good place to start. Talking about Dharma, what it is. So you might be aware that Dharma, in its rough translation, is religion. It would be understood as religion in English. It is a rough translation. Dharma is not all that what religion is all about. Dharma is much more than religion, but we'll get to that later. But rough English translation is religion, which is a human being's relation to that which they regard as holy, sacred, absolute, spiritual, divine, or worthy of special reverence. It is the root of the word religion came from Latin word ligare, which means to tie or bind together. So what? To tie and bind together with the divine. So meaning again. So religion is to binding together a soul with the divine. So according to that Latin understanding of religion, it is binding a soul with its source, the Lord. Now, in Vedic terminology and Eastern philosophical traditions, religion or Dharma is somewhat different. Dharma, when we say Dharma is basically the essential property of a thing. Essential property is basically is the property which makes what it is. For example, I'll talk about essential and non-essential property. The essential property of sugar is sweetness, right? If it is sugar, it has to be sweet. If it is not sweet, it is not sugar. It is that plain and simple. But sugar can be, as you might all be aware, we have seen brown sugar, we have seen white sugar, we have seen sugar in crystalline form, we have seen sugar in powder form. It can be of different shape, different sizes. It can be put together as one big chunk. Those are non-essential properties. The brownness of sugar has nothing to do with uh, its essence. So it does not matter whether sugar is brown or white or crystalline or powder. If it is not sweet, it is not sugar. So the color, the texture is the non-essential property. However, sweetness is the essential property. That is what makes sugar sugar. We can say, like, let's give another example. Santa Paudel is Santa Paudel because Santa Paudel has life within him. I'm human, like everybody else. I have 2 eyes, a nose, a head, 2 hands, and everything that any other human being would have. That is not what makes Santa Paudel Santa Paudel. What makes Santa Paudel Santa Paudel is the life that is within him. The life force, because of which Santa Paudel exists. The essential property, that he is breathing, that he is walking, that he is speaking, that he can see, that he can speak, that he can express his emotions and feeling. Because of that life force, he can do all these things. His 2 hands are non-essential properties. He can exist without his 2 hands. But what he cannot exist without is the life force that we call by the term soul. Soul is because which Santa Paudel exists. The life within him is because of which the world around Santa Paudel exists. The relations exist because Santa Paudel exists. If Santa Paudel does not exist, the world around him does not exist. So such is the case with every one of you. So Dharma, according to the Vedic understanding, is the essential property. What makes what it is. So the word Dharma is made up of 2 letters, Dri and Ma, as you can see in the picture there. And Dharma, according to Vedic understanding, is Dri means embrace and accept with a true understanding of. And Ma is that life source, because of which everything exists. As we say in English, this is my hand, this is mine, this is not me, my hand is not me. This is my head, this is not me. I'm not my head, my foot, my chest, my life. All these body parts, all that exists are mine, that's not me. What is me is that life source, our soul within us. So embracing it with a true understanding of it is what Dharma is, according to the Vedic scriptures. So what is Dharma? Is embracing this soul is the part of the divine plan, the part of the divine. And Dharma is to live for that soul, because everything exists because I am alive. The day I'm dead, the day soul walks out of this body, the day the soul discards this body, it's not Santa Paudel, it's a dead body. He does not have any friends. Even he or she does not exist. There are no relationships. The world does not exist for that person because the person does not exist. So understanding and realizing that self, realizing that soul, and realizing that as a part of the divine plan is what Dharma is. So Bhagavad Gita and a lot of other scriptures, a lot of scholars talk about soul, the life force, and what it is. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse number 23, Sri Krishna says, Nainam chindanti sastrani, nainam dahati bhavakaha, nachainam kledayan tyapu nasoshayati maruta. Weapons cannot shred the soul, nor can fire burn it. Water cannot wet it or dissolve it, nor can the wind dry it. That is what soul is, the life force. Chapter 2, verse number 24, Sri Krishna continues to say, the soul is unbreakable and incombustible. It can neither be dampened or dried. It is everlasting in all places, unalterable, immutable, and primordial. That is what soul is. So understanding that soul is the eternal living force that has existed so long as the world has existed. The eternality of it, its relationship to the God, its relationship to its source, understanding that, have a sense of it within us is what Dharma is. As we talked about earlier, as a person sheds worn out garments and wears new ones, when we have clothes that are turning old and they are torn apart, what we do? We shed them, we discard them. Likewise, at the time of death, the soul casts off its worn out body and enters a new one. So, soul is eternal. So, understanding the eternality of our existence, understanding that we have always existed so long as the world has existed, understanding that we are the part of the divine, understanding that we have been in this world for a long, long time, that we is not the body, but it's just the tool. So that is what the religion is. And it is just not the Vedic scriptures, but a lot of other scholars have talked about soul. Socrates, one of the greatest philosophers that the world has ever seen, says, I'm confident that there truly is such a thing as living again, and that the living springs from the dead, and that the souls of the dead are in existence. Isaac Lurid says, there is no death. How can there be death if everything is a part of Godhead? The soul never dies, and the body is never really alive. So a lot of these scholars, philosophers have talked about the concept of soul. Ralph Waldo Emerson says the soul comes from without into the human body as into a temporary abode, and it goes out of it anew. It passes into other habitations where the soul is immortal. Talks about the reincarnation of that life force, casting off older bodies and every time getting a new one. Benjamin Franklin says, finding myself to exist in the world, I believe myself in some shape or other would always exist. Mahatma Gandhi, Bapu, as we all know, the father of India, says, I live in this hope that, if not in this birth, in some other birth, I shall be able to hug all of humanity in friendly embrace. And Pythagoras says, I can remember my old lives. If you have ever become a part of the regression therapy, in those therapies, in hypnotic analysis, people remember their past lives, who they were in the past life, and how their life in one way or the other is shaped by their past experiences. And Vedic scriptures are all about that. The concept of boon and curses that a lot of these divine beings and the people of the past experienced are explained in the Vedas, in the Vedic scriptures, especially in the Puranas. So soul, embracing soul, understanding it, realizing it is what Dharma is. That is why there is a term called self-realization, realizing that we are the part of divine, realizing that the soul is because of which we exist, realizing the place that this soul descended and embraced this human body is what Dharma is. As we go deeper into Dharma, Dharayati iti Dharma, one that sustains and upholds is Dharma. We talked about the next one, nature of an object, the essential property. So the Dharma of a being is to find God. Our Dharma is to find God, because when we say our, or when we say we are the souls. And the Dharma of soul is to find its source, because everything eventually, everyone eventually wants to merge with its source. The river, if you see, originating in the mountains, passes across different terrains, geographies, through the mountains, through the valleys. Eventually what happens? The river ends up in an ocean. And when it ends up in an ocean, the river loses its identity, becomes the ocean itself. That is what Dharma is. Finding God, being one with it, experiencing non-duality with Paramatma. So through the understanding of divinity within, trying to connect to its source, the Supreme Soul, Paramatma, the Supreme Being, is what soul is Dharma is. It assists soul in finding that. In Vaisesika Sutra, Dharma is stated to be something which gives us prosperity here and salvation afterwards. Yatho abhyudaya nisreyasa siddhisa dharma, according to Vaisesika Sutra. So if we look at the world around us, if we look at the people around us, the followers of different faiths, be it Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Jains, Sikhs, look at the people around you. Most of the people are living miserably. Most of the people who follow God, who follow these faiths, these religions, are experiencing the deep trance of suffering in their lives. Then they must be missing something, because Dharma is something that gives us prosperity and happiness in this world. The world is reeling from all different kinds of troubles all the time. There was no time in the history of existence that everyone was happy. Everyone was living in ecstasy. No, there was not a single moment when everyone was happy in this world. So either they are misguided or they are not following the rightful Dharma. Because if we were following the rightful Dharma, as Mahamati says, Dukha Rupi na Jivime, Dukha na Kamudeka, in the world full of suffering, the awakened souls do not find suffering anywhere. That would have been the state of individuals. That is not the case. That is why what Beerat does is help us follow the rightful Dharma. It helps us with the true understanding of the cosmos and the creation, help us navigate through the root cause of suffering in this world and dissect it to non-existence. So we talked about Dharma in greater details. According to Manu, one of the great premier Vedic philosophers, there are 10 attributes of Dharma. Those who say follow Dharma have to follow these 10 things. They should have patience, as it starts off saying, Dhritik Shama Damosteyam Sauchamindriya Nigraha Nirvidya Satyama Krodho Dasakam Dharma Lakshanam. So patience is the first attribute of Dharma. One should have patience. Patience is nothing but the ability to give attention to something for a long time without losing interest. I have seen people who say that they have believed in God for so long, practiced their faith for so long, but their patience have been running thin because they have not received the grace of God. People lose their patience. They cannot remain calm and not be annoyed in dealing with problems of their lives. We are not practicing a rightful Dharma. We do not have that patience. We are upset all the time. So the first attribute of Dharma, according to Manusmriti, chapter 6, verse number 29, one should have patience. That is the first attribute of our spiritual practice, of our religious practice. So now lose our patience. The next one is forgiveness. Kshama. A motivational speaker held a glass of water, let's say a bottle of water. He held it and asked his audience, "How heavy is this? Can I hold it for a minute?" The people in the audience said, "Yes, you can. There's no problem. It must not be heavy. It's probably a few pounds, probably 3 pounds." In Eastern understanding, probably half kilogram, and 1 kilogram, whatever it is. The speaker asked the audience again, "What happens if I hold it for an hour?" The audience said, "Your hand would probably begin to feel numb. Your hand will begin to feel hurt. You'll have pain." The speaker asked the audience again, "What happens if I hold it for 3 days?" The audience said, "Your hand would be paralyzed. You won't be able to move your hands again." So, forgiveness is a decision to let go of resentment and thoughts of revenge, not holding grudges against anyone. And those who practice Dharma, those who practice the path of spirituality should have forgiveness as one of the virtues within them. Because the more we hold on to our grudges, the more troubling it becomes for ourselves. So this is the second attribute of Dharma. Those who practice Dharma, those who are practicing Dharma should have these 10 attributes to call themselves following the rightful Dharma, or the true followers of Dharma. The third one is self-control. Self-control is nothing but the ability to manage one's impulses, emotions, and behaviors to achieve long-term goals. And it is actually what differentiates human from the animals. We can control our emotions and feelings because we can have different emotions and feelings about anyone, but we control them to make them conducive to our growth. And if we do not have that, if you see around the world today, there is a lot of hostilities between different religious traditions. People are fearful of one religion. People are fearful of the followers of particular faiths. People have bigotry in their minds. They do not have respect for other faiths. The peaceful coexistence of all different religions seems like a distant ideas. People destroy temples, people destroy mosques, people destroy churches. They disrespect each other. They do not have the sense of self-control and respect for others. That is what should be the practice of Dharma. Honesty. It is a facet of moral character that connotes positive and virtuous attributes. Not lying, not cheating, sincerity, loyalty, fairness. Those practicing Dharma, those practicing these faiths should have honesty. But if you see around the world today, these religious leaders, most of the religious leaders in the history and to the present day, I won't say most, but many of them are truly corrupt. Even the followers, they say one thing, they do the other thing. As Mahamati Pranami says, Bahar dekhave bandagi andar kare kukarama kam Mahamata puche Brahma Shrishti kuku Vaikunta jasaki naam. From the outside, they seem to be the true devotees. But from the inside, they have all these vices within them. They are not honest. They are not truthful. Mahamati Pranaji asked those Sundar Shats, where would you end up? In Vaikunt or Paramdham, because you are not worthy of Raji's grace and you do not worship Lord Vishnu. Honesty is one of the attributes of Dharma. And what we see around us is what looks completely different than what it should be. The followers of religion, the followers of this Dharma should have honesty, should have been honest, but that's not the case. That's why we see a lot of troubles in religious realms today. The other one is cleanliness. As Mahamati Pranaji also talks about it. Mahamati Pranaji talks about external purity and internal purity, internal cleanliness. It's not just about cleaning your body, but cleaning your senses, cleaning your thoughts, cleaning your actions. Having that is essential for us to receive the merits of our Dharma, of our spiritual practices. The other one is sense control. As Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse number 58, Sri Krishna says, one who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects. As the tortoise draws his limbs within the cell is understood to be truly situated in knowledge. So having that sense control is crucial because the senses are often compared to poisonous snakes. They want to act very freely and without any restrictions. But if we want to make headway or progress in our spiritual life, we have to control our senses. On Until we do that, we cannot receive the fruits of our spiritual practice. The other one is the sense of reasoning. We should have the logic behind what we do, why we do things the way we do. Because for a lot of people, the religion has turned it into a blind faith. They follow what they are told. They do not seek. They do not pursue. They do not examine. I have seen the Hindus who have never read Bhagavad Gita or any other scriptures for that matter. Seen Christians who do not have any understanding of what Bible says, what Jesus had to endure to give them the knowledge. They have no understanding of the divine revelations of Prophet Muhammad. So what they engage in is completely opposite of what they are told. So we should have the sense of reasoning if we are saying that we are following the Dharma. It is through educating ourselves, providing the knowledge, comparative study. That is what we should have if we say we follow the Dharma. That is Vidya, knowledge of the beyond, knowledge of the cosmos. Until we know that, as we already quoted, until we know who we are, until we know the relationship between ourselves and the Lord, then we fail miserably in our spiritual pursuit. Truthfulness, being true to our roots, being true to who we are, finding ourselves is another key to getting the merits of our religious or spiritual practices. And finally, akrodha, ability to control our temper or our anger, is the other attribute of Dharma. As Manu says in Manusmriti, only when we have these attributes, we are known to be as spiritual. We are following the rightful Dharma when we have these attributes within us. When Mahamati Pranaji's Beerat is thoroughly understood, we not only understand what exists in the planetary system, but we change, we reform, we modify our lives accordingly. Why Dharma? According to Hinduism, Dharma is one of the goals of humanity. It is an object of human pursuit. In Hinduism, there are 4 purusarthas, 4 things, 4 goals a human being must strive to achieve. The first one being Dharma. Dharma is righteousness, doing what you are born to do. Like we said yesterday, Dharma is the essence. We talked about essential and non-essential properties on yesterday's session. If it is not sweet, it is not sugar. It may look like sugar. Salt and sugar look the same. I do not know if you have a powdered sugar in India or Nepal, but here in the United States, if you would put a bowl of sugar on one side and the bowl of salt on the other, you would not be able to distinguish until you taste it whether it is salt or sugar. It may look the same. We said yesterday, sugar can be coarse, sugar can be crystalline, sugar can be brown. Those are non-essential properties. That is not what makes it sugar. What makes it sugar is the sweetness. Similarly, what makes us human is the life that is throbbing inside us. That soul. So living for the soul is what Dharma is. The soul that craves, the soul that eternally desires to unify, to merge with the Lord. That is what Dharma is. We talked about the river yesterday, a river originating in the mountain, passes through different creeks, different mountains, some plain surfaces, some rugged surfaces, sometimes straight lines, sometimes curved lines, eventually finds a way to the ocean. And when it does, what happens? It loses its name. It loses its identity. And that is where it rests. Similarly, it's a human being. The life that we have is the most precious one, and finding God, finding the source of all the lives there are, is what Dharma is. That is why, as a human being, we have always pursued that happiness, that bliss, because God is the source of all happiness. That is why, if you look around, it is not just human. All the living entities are in pursuit of that happiness. So why Dharma? Like it or not, we are all walking on that path. But what we have failed to do is walk on the right path. That is why we feel miserable. That is why we feel the wrath of the world. That is why we suffer. That is why we cry a lot. So that is why we follow the right path. That is why we follow righteousness. The other Purusharthas include Artha. Artha is wealth, acquiring wealth and resources, because these are needed to attain our purpose in life, to live a fulfilling life, to live a more convenient life. The third one is Kam. Kam is the gratification of desires, fulfillment of desires, the pleasure of attaining our goals and purpose, the pleasure that we attain from fulfilling our Dharma. That is one of the other goals. And last but not the least, probably the most important of all, is moksha. If we do not find a way to God in this life, we'll talk about the sanctity of human life, what value human life holds. Next, we would understand that one of the most precious goals of human life should be moksha, the final emancipation, the state of purpose completed once and for all, forever. That is one of the other goals of the human life.